Hey, everybody. How's it going? I'm Riley Vasquez. Welcome to the first session of our 4-week web series that's dedicated to helping tour managers thrive in their next job. Now, if you're here and you're not a tour manager, don't turn this off yet. It's actually great that you're here because what you're going to learn today is going to help you in your job too. In fact, every session over the next 4 weeks is going to be dedicated to helping you go back to work stronger than you were before. And I heard someone say it recently. We're going to go forward to work instead of back to work. So every session over the next 4 weeks is going to help you start back on the right foot. This week, we'll be talking about why you should become a value-driven touring professional. And we have a guest with us today. She is awesome. I love her so much, and I'm so glad she agreed to be here. Her name's Carolyn Snell. She's been on the road with Brandi Carlile, Janet Jackson, John Mayer, just to name a few people. And then week 2, next week, we're going to talk about 3 things you should do when starting a new job. Almost everybody here is going to be starting a new job really soon. And so what do we do? What are some ways that we can start off on the right foot? We've got 3 ways to help you do that. We'll be joined by Lotje Horvers. She's from the Netherlands. She's awesome. She's tour manager for M83 and the winner of the Women in Live Music Award. She's joining us next week. So then 3rd week, we're going to be jumping into more of the advancing side of what that looks like as a tour manager. And this will be an excerpt that's taken from our How to Be a Tour Manager course. Jesse, my business partner, and I, we took as many advances as we could, all the successful ones, boiled down all of them to 7 steps that are repeatable that can allow you to advance any tour, no matter what size. And we're going to share those with you on week 3. Also, that week, our guest will be some Nashville tour managers who've created a new app. They're going to help you advance a show, save you so much time and so much energy. And I think they're really revolutionizing the life of a tour manager and just the advancing side in general. And then 4th week, we're going to be joined by the Event Safety Alliance and the Showmakers CEO, Jim Digby. He's going to tell us how to go back to work and be safe. So be safe from COVID, to avoid risks of any other type. We're just really, really excited. It's when we move forward, it's of utmost importance that we take care of ourselves and our team. And so that's what we're going to be talking about on the 4th week. All right. Thanks so much for joining us. I do not take it lightly that you gave us your email, you signed up for this thing, you joined us. And so, you just heard what the next few weeks are going to look like, but you are going to walk away with so much knowledge and, hearing so much good stuff, encouraging stuff after this series. Today, I'll be teaching just a little bit for like 30 minutes. Carolyn will join us for an interview, and this whole thing will last about 45 minutes to 60 minutes. Today, I want to talk about a major problem in our industry. A lot of touring crew professionals, they lose opportunities and money because, well, they're not committed to growth. And the worst part about it is a lot of times they don't even realize it. A lot of industries, a lot of places of work, they have employee training and they show you how to do your job well and how to get better at your job. But unfortunately, our industry just hasn't had a lot of training. Our industry has lacked training for years, and therefore, crew people, it's super easy to become stagnant in your personal and professional development. And whether you realize it or not, this lack of training and growth can actually cost you a lot of new relationships. It can cost you new job opportunities, and it can even cost you dollar bills, money, your salary. And everyone here, I'm sure you've worked super hard to get to where you are. And I just don't think you deserve this to happen to you. So today I want to show you how a new way of thinking can actually help change the cycle, can actually help break this cycle. Before I get into this, I just want to tell you kind of what made me start studying personal growth. I've been a tour manager and a front of house engineer based in Nashville for the last 10 years. And during that time, I saw how hard it is to actually find a job in the industry. If no one you currently work with is touring, how do you find new opportunities? It's nearly impossible. So in 2019, I started a company called Tour Collective, and we've been helping touring crew find jobs. And in that time, I had a lot of conversations between artists, between managers, and touring crew. And I found out that people who get hired over and over and over and get paid more money in their job are not just people who are talented at their craft, but it seemed like these people developed certain characteristics in their personal and professional life. So I started kind of diving into more about like what made these people more successful. And turns out I was actually onto something. I found that these characteristics that set successful people apart from others, are not only true for people in the touring industry, but they're true for people in every other industry as well. And I found a lot written on the subject by people way smarter than me. So I actually listened to a friend talk about this recently, and he said something super controversial. And I'm going to share that with you today. And don't freak out. It's not political or religious, but he said everyone has a little number floating above their heads that signifies how much money you're worth in your job. Now, don't get me wrong. You are a beautiful, priceless human, but whether or not you realize it, you're only worth a certain dollar amount in your job. Now, in the touring world, your rate's going to be measured typically by like who you've worked with, multiplied by how long you've been on the industry and how well you do your job, right? Well, some people, they never make it past a certain number. They keep doing the same things over and over and over for decades, just hoping to catch a big break. They're sitting there waiting for an opportunity to come to them rather than being proactive, taking risks, and going after new things. But if we keep doing the same thing over and over and over, expecting a different result, isn't that what Einstein said is the definition of insanity? This pandemic, man, it's ripping out all of our old processes. It's destroying all of our old ways of thinking. And it's really starting to shine a light on a path of where we need to go as an industry. For a lot of years, I've seen touring crew professionals never move forward in their job and never make more money. And that's because they weren't committed to personal growth. And that is a huge bummer. But the story of this type of crew person does not have to be your story. I said it a minute ago. Most of you have worked so hard to get to where you are. You're really good at what you do. Even if you're a student and you're trying to get into this industry, you are probably working your butt off trying to figure things out, trying to get in, and you deserve to move forward, not backward. You can make that little number above your head increase. And over the next 4 weeks, I'm going to show you some strategies and some ways to do that. There's a term I want to start with today, and I want to familiarize you with this term. The term is value-driven professional. A value-driven professional is someone who is consistently improving themselves, their team, their environment, and their tools. Now, you may be thinking, Riley, why in the world are you telling us about this? This sounds super corporate. What does this mean for me? Well, yes, it does sound corporate, probably because someone who worked in a corporate office came up with this term. So I'm going to do some magic. I'm going to make this term apply to you. Boom. Value-driven touring professional. Started out corporate, now it applies to all of us. Value-driven touring professionals. If someone gave you a sheet of paper, they handed you a sheet of paper and asked you to write down characteristics of the type of person you want to be on a bus with, the type of person you want to be on tour with, what would you write? Would you say you want to be around someone who's optimistic or pessimistic? Would you say you want to be around someone who's drama-free or someone who's really tough to be around? Would you say you want to be on tour with someone who consistently plays the victim card or somebody who's the hero in the tough situations? Do you want a person who never learns from their mistakes or someone who's always growing? I'd say if we all took our papers, turned them around to each other, we'd say the exact same thing, right? These are all characteristics of a value-driven touring professional. And I want to zoom in on 4 of these characteristics today. You might want to write these down. You can take screenshots if you want, but I'll also be sending out notes and a replay of this session, just FYI. Now, remember, anything I say here is not just coming from the brain of Riley. I've done a lot of research and a lot of reading, and a lot of what I'm talking about today is coming from authors, leadership experts, business experts, psychologists, and people that are way, way smarter than me. So the first characteristic of a value-driven touring professional is you have to see yourself as a product on the market. Every product out there, no matter what it is, solves some type of problem. The coffee tumbler, my coffee tumbler right here that I have sitting next to me that holds my coffee, keeps it from getting cold quick, and it lets me drink warm coffee all day. That solves my problem. The exterminator that came to my house last week, we had a bad ant problem. He's preventing ants from getting into my home. He solves a problem. Even the oatmeal chocolate chip cookies that I ate last night, they smell great when they're cooking, and they make me feel happy when I eat them. That solves a problem. Uh, every product, no matter what it is, it solves some type of problem. So what problem do you solve? Have you ever thought about that? If you're a lighting person, it should be pretty easy. You solve the problem of darkness, and hopefully you do it really artistically. If you're a tour manager, you solve the problem of an inefficient, money hemorrhaging tour, and you help make the process great from start to finish. You're solving a problem. If you're a front of house engineer, you have the problem of making the vocals sound intelligible. You make the show sound great in any room, and you create a great mix so that, people enjoy listening to the show. You solve the problems. Remember, we talked about that little number floating above your head. You get paid in exchange for what you're worth and what you provide. So, say you only know how to push cases and pack up gear. Well, unfortunately, that's only going to be worth a small hourly rate. But if you know how to pack a truck and set up instruments properly, well, you're going to get paid a little more. And then if you know how to lead a crew, you're going to be worth a little more. And then if you can tour manage, you can lead a crew, you can set up a guitar, you can make sure every piece of gear is in top working condition every night. That number above your head is just going to keep growing more and more and more. You as a product are becoming way more valuable because you're able to provide more services and solve more problems. So when the artist hired you, you saved the artist money because they didn't have to bring out other people on the road. You saved the artist money because they didn't have to rent gear when their gear was broken. You gave your team peace of mind because they knew they could count on you to lead them on a tour. I think you get the picture here. You're a product on the market, and a value-driven touring professional is always pushing to change that number on top of their head. Well, you may say, Riley, how in the world do I change that number? Well, it's going to take work, some type of work. There's a few ways you can do that. You can just start by simply reading books. Reading books on personal development. You can listen to webinars like this or like other resources in the industry, like Tour Management 101, great resource to listen to. You can find a mentor, ask a mentor to ask pointed questions to a mentor, ask them to help develop you. But one way it's going to give you more leverage to change that number above your head and to increase your value on the road is to learn another role adjacent to your role, aka learn how to wear another hat on the road. I've spoken to a lot of managers and artists over the last year, and they all have said the same thing. When touring starts back, which it is right now, there are tours being booked right now, festivals selling out right now. And I know an arena tour that just ended this weekend. It was very low key. No one probably heard about it, but there's an arena tour. Artists all say the same thing. They're going to be looking to cut all unnecessary costs. They're going to be looking to make money and save money. And they're going to do that by bringing fewer people on the road that can accomplish more tasks. That's how they're going to do it first. And if you can do more than one job, that's going to make you way more valuable on the road. Like I said earlier, our industry doesn't have a ton of training. So how do you grow? How do you become that value-driven touring professional? There's a lot of people out there right now who are teaching their craft. Again, I said, find a mentor. These people who are teaching what they're doing is super respectable. We tried to do our part. We created a course called How to Be a Tour Manager that helps students and current touring crew learn how to manage tours. And in this course, we'll actually take you from start to finish of a tour manager, show you how to be successful and manage a tour. I'll tell you a little bit about this later. But a value-driven touring professional, they see themselves as an economic product on the market, and they are always doing everything they can to consistently drive up their value on a tour. Second characteristic of a value-driven touring professional is someone who knows how to engage in open and honest conflict. Now, I'll be the first to say, engaging in conflict, man, it is not fun, but it is absolutely necessary. because nothing great can ever be achieved without engaging in some form of conflict. You can't climb a mountain without conflict. You can't lose weight without conflict. Those conflict looks like burpees, losing weight. Winning a football game, you can't do it without engaging in some form of conflict. You can't dig a garden in your backyard, plant new plants during the spring without engaging in some kind of conflict. And you definitely can't run a great tour without engaging and navigating through some type of conflict. The word conflict, it gets a bad connotation. It really gets a bad rap. Conflict on a team, in a team dynamic, can be actually healthy. If you've built trust with your team and everybody respects each other, then conflict is actually no longer an argument, but it rather conflict becomes the pursuit of truth, or conflict becomes the pursuit of the best possible outcome in a scenario. So if you all are in pursuit of the best possible outcome in a scenario in our industry that's probably putting on a great show, why wouldn't you confront someone if they're hurting the vision or the goal of the team? Why wouldn't you have a conversation with someone who's not continuing to get the proper results? Learning how to actively address conflict head on rather than just sweeping it under the rug, it's going to help you overcome tough situations in every part of your life. Now, let me say, that doesn't mean you're allowed to be a jerk. Being a jerk just means you're an a-hole. It doesn't mean you're good at addressing conflict. But a value-driven touring professional loves engaging in healthy conflict, just like an athlete loves the pain of a great workout. I remember one of my first tours. I was working with a band who played Rockwood Music Hall in the Lower East Side of NYC. A lot of you have probably been there. And if you've played Rockwood or you've toured through there, you know how small that venue is. Rockwood is famous for booking shows back to back to back, rock bands and piano playing singer songwriters back to back. And there's a lot of logistics that happen in that little tiny space. The night I was there, we were headlining a show and there were chairs and tables set up in the crowd. And the band I was working with was kind of like an indie rock, dancey indie rock kind of band. And the band did not want their audience to be seated at chairs and tables because they wanted them to dance. They're a dancey band. So we had a problem. We're setting up to play a show. People are coming expecting to dance, but the room is set up with tables and chairs. So the singer comes to me, and I'm the tour manager here. Singer comes to me and says, we need you to get the chairs and tables out of the venue. Okay. So I walked to the venue manager, told them the problem, asked them to move the chairs and tables, and they said a stern no. So I went back to the artist and said, sorry, man, the venue said no, they can't move the chairs. And right then and there, the singer blew up on me, kind of lost it on me. He told me to take him directly to the manager of the venue. So nervously, I kind of directed him down the hall to the venue manager. And he was walking super fast. Again, I was kind of nervous as we're walking into his office. He was obviously on a mission to confront the guy who wouldn't move the tables. But what happened next in this conversation changed me because it showed me that conflict is more than just an argument to get one's way. It's more than just an argument, but it's the pursuit of the best possible outcome. So the singer, still obviously angry, said to the manager, tell me why you think we're here. The manager, kind of dumbfounded, just looked at him. I don't know, play a show. So the singer says, yes, we're here to play a great show, and we sold out every ticket in the room. Our band is a band that when an audience comes, they expect to dance. He said, we came here to do a job. We came here to play a show. We came to play a great show. How can our audience dance if there are chairs and tables set up in the venue? So the manager kind of fumbled around with an answer, but it didn't really matter whatever answer he came up with. The answer just wasn't going to work because the manager knew that if the audience dances and they have a great time, they're going to buy more drinks. And then they'll probably come back to the venue at some point. And in the future, everyone's going to make more money and ultimately be happier. And in that moment, the giant feat, the giant no of moving chairs and tables became such a small little blip in the afternoon. It went from one thing that absolutely was not going to happen to the one thing they knew they had to do to make the show great. Why am I telling you this story? Well, it's the first time I realized that you can engage in conflict head on, and actually a lot of good can come to both sides. So instead of just arguing about a topic, we achieved a result that everyone was happy with. That night, we played our first sold out New York show. People danced, they had a great time, and we actually became friends with the bartenders, the sound guy, the venue manager, and we met back many times after that. A value driven touring professional knows how to engage in open and honest conflict. And if you know how to manage conflict well, you are going to gain more and more responsibility, meaning you're only going to move up. Okay, let's do a review real quick. First characteristic we talked about, someone who sees themselves as a product on the market, and being conscientious, someone who's conscientious about always driving up the value of the services they provide. Second characteristic, someone who knows how to engage in open and honest conflict. Third, someone who is relentlessly optimistic. Be relentlessly optimistic. Now, you may think I'm referring to optimism as like optimism versus pessimism, like happy versus sad or cynical. But I'm actually not talking about it like that. I'm talking about optimism as, why don't we take more risks and go after the things we want? And pessimism would be, why do we fear the things that might go wrong? Why do we fear the things that might not work out for us? Most days in our lives, they go pretty well, right? Like, you woke up today, you're sitting here, you probably had lunch. It's, if you're in Nashville, it's a beautiful day outside. So typically most days they're fine, right? So if most days are pretty good, why do we spend so much time in fear that things might go wrong for us? Science actually can explain this. The reason we anticipate things going so wrong all the time is because at our most basic level, we are primates. Primates are great at avoiding threats. And our human brain is designed for survival. It's designed to keep us alive. We will do pretty much anything we can do to avoid death. So if we're hiking in the mountains and we come to the edge of a cliff, we're going to back up a few steps. When we're walking through a rough part of town, we are going to be alert because we need to know if we're in danger or not. We're wired for survival. This also means we're good at more than just assessing threats. We also strive to fit in a group. We strive to run with a pack. And we fear being embarrassed because that can actually isolate us from our group. Some research I think is super interesting from Johns Hopkins shows that even children at 2 years old make crazy choices just to be able to fit in a group. Our brains are wired for survival, so we avoid taking risks because we might fail. And if we fail, we might be embarrassed. And that embarrassment might separate us from the pack. And being separated from the pack means we're on our own. And in nature, if you're on your own, you might get eaten. That's how our brain thinks. But see, we cannot be worried about failure. We have to be optimistic that things are going to actually work out. If you're innovating in your job, you're trying new things, you're trying to grow that number above your head, there's a high chance you will absolutely fail at some point or another. Any successful person, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's Jeff Bezos, any successful person will tell you they have failed many, many times. But it's the way that you view failure that will change you. We have to view our failures through an optimistic lens. Now, this may sound harsh, and I don't mean it to be harsh at all, but some of you here on this webinar right now, you might feel like a failure. This has been a extremely tough year for all of us. You chose a job in an industry that is currently shut down, and you may be wondering why you chose this route for your life, and you may be afraid of what's to come or afraid of what's not to come. And this response is absolutely, completely valid. And I felt this so much over the past year. The thing that I went to college for and spent the last 10 years building up, it just went, it vanished in mid March. But feeling like a failure is not the right response to all that. A value driven touring professional, you may fail, but you're not going to label yourself as a failure. See the difference? You're going to take a step back and look at your situation. You find the light and you keep going. Be optimistic about your position, because that mentality is the only thing that's going to save you and keep you going. My friend Donald Miller wrote on this topic, what it means to be a value-driven professional. And I want to read you a paragraph out of his new book called Business Made Simple. While some opportunities to succeed in life don't work, some opportunities actually do. And the more relentlessly optimistic you are, the more you get to enjoy the rewards that come with trying. By staying relentlessly optimistic, you dramatically increase the chances that at some point you will succeed. The more optimistic you are, the more you will be willing to try. And the more you try, the more often you will actually experience success. Nothing in life is going to cost you more than a predetermined belief that you're going to fail, which leads us to our last characteristic. You must have a growth mindset. Now, this characteristic is taken from a Stanford professor who wrote a book. Her name is Carol Dweck. She wrote a book called Mindsets. So she researched and essentially proved how there are two mindsets that can predict whether an individual or a team are going to be successful at whatever they do or not. And these two mindsets, everyone in the world boils down to these two mindsets. Two mindsets are the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. So what do these mindsets mean? Well, talk about the fixed mindset first. A person with a fixed mindset believes that at your core, you cannot change who you are. Character traits, abilities, intelligence, talents. A person with a fixed mindset believes that they can't change any of those traits and they're not capable of becoming a better person than who they are at a certain given moment. And because fixed mindset people believe they were born with a fixed level of intelligence, they're afraid of sounding dumb in front of others. They're afraid of looking dumb. They're afraid of taking risks. They're afraid of trying something new because it might make them look bad if they fail. And they become very defensive when they're criticized and when they fail. And the reason they become defensive is because they don't believe they can actually do better, or because they believe they currently know all there is to know about the topic, and failing or criticism is actually an insult to their character. It's actually an insult to their innermost being. That's what people with fixed mindsets feel like. Now, the other mindset, the growth mindset, they show us that people with this mindset actually believe they can change and they can get smarter. So they are more willing to embrace different challenges that they face because they know that if they fail, it's not an insult to their identity. It's not an insult to their character or their innermost being, but they just did the wrong thing. And you know what? They'll do the right thing next time. Carol Dweck, the author of Mindsets that we're talking about, she found in her research that whenever students failed a test, the ones with a growth mindset sought out methods to improve themselves, while students with a fixed mindset, they just kind of gave up. The students with the growth mindset, they started making better grades. They started, flourishing in the class. But students with a fixed mindset, they didn't show any improvement. And then the growth minded students, years and years later, they went on to do bigger and better things, while the fixed mindset students were just completely left behind. Obviously, you can see the pattern here. Growth minded people are continuing to achieve and overcome, while fixed minded people stay where they are, all because of their own limiting beliefs. So this has nothing to do with intelligence, has nothing to do with talent, nothing to do with abilities. It all has to do with how you see yourself and what you believe about yourself. So if you're listening to this and you kind of, identified more with the fixed mindset, there's good news here, because you can actually transform who you are simply by seeing the world differently in 5 different categories. We're going to talk about these real quick. She goes into super detail on these in the book. And I'd recommend everybody grab the book. But I'm going to go through these really quickly. The 5 different categories are challenges, obstacles, effort, criticism, and the success of others. So a growth-minded person first chooses to embrace challenges rather than avoid them. And that kind of goes back to the conflict, what we're talking about. They embrace challenges rather than avoid it. 2, a growth-minded person chooses to persist through obstacles rather than to just give up when it's hard. Number 3, a growth-minded person chooses to see all their effort and all the work they do as a path to mastery rather than just a bunch of pointless actions. So they realize that every effort they do matters, and all those efforts combine together to help you become great, even if some of those efforts result in failure. So once again, a growth-minded person chooses to see all their effort and all the work they do as a path to mastery rather than just pointless actions. Number four, when criticized, a growth-minded person chooses to learn from the criticism rather than ignoring it, and rather than ignoring the feedback. They take criticism and feedback as a gift rather than a diss. And I've been a front of house engineer. When I have people criticize my mix, man, it pisses me off. But this is saying that as a growth-minded person, I need to learn from the criticism. I need to take that feedback as a gift. Number five, lastly, a growth minded person chooses to be inspired by the success of others rather than feeling threatened by what they've achieved. This point kind of goes back to being relentlessly optimistic and, why choose to be cynical and be threatened by what other people are achieving. A lot of times we hate on the people who are succeeding, but, chances are they're just a growth minded person who are applying these kind of characteristics to their own life. So the transformation from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset takes us from believing the phrases, I have arrived, to I'm always getting better. And from I am great to I'm always constantly learning and improving. When I first started working in this industry, I was around a lot of people that were older than me. I was pretty young, and all those people would tell me I couldn't do things a certain way, not because it was necessarily wrong, but because this is how we've always done it. How many times have you heard that phrase? That phrase right there describes someone who has a fixed mindset. You're not willing to try something new just because you don't want to possibly, maybe, might fail. Having a growth mindset is so important to your continued success. I'll land the plane here. Whether we realize it or not, our industry, it is changing right in front of our eyes. We cannot afford to go back to work or go forward to work as the same person we were before this pandemic. We've got to change. We've got to adapt. We have to be committed to personal and professional growth. As touring professionals, if you're not committed to growth in your job, you will absolutely lose opportunities in the future. But if you commit to growth, you educate yourself, you keep learning more, doing everything you can to increase that little number above your head by thinking like a value-driven touring professional, man, you are going to come out of this pandemic so much stronger. You're going to enter your next job so much stronger. And it's going to be so awesome to look back and see how far you've come. So think like a value-driven touring professional. I want to invite Carolyn Snell. She has become a friend during the pandemic. This is a great photo of her here. We've only gotten to chat a few times, and I've learned she is a encouraging and kind person, and I think you're really going to enjoy hearing from her. I don't want to ruin any more of her. I don't want to give you any more information because we're going to be talking a lot to her, but I want to go ahead and invite her in, and I got to figure out how to bring her up here. Let's see.
It worked.
Hey,
We're here.
So great.
I hope this works.
I like your wall back there.
Thank you. This worked out for the pandemic very well.
Yeah, that looks great. I need to work on my wall. It's just a white backdrop.
Good.
Right now.
You got plenty of room to work with.
Well, thanks so much for being here. Real quick, can you just kind of tell us all who you are, kind of, where you live and what your jobs have been in the industry?
Sure. I live in Nashville, Tennessee. We actually have to meet up sometime because I know you're here too. So let's do that in person sometime. I'm a tour manager, and in the past I've been assistant tour manager, kind of like a catch-all production, dressing room person, and sponsorship rep on the road.
That's awesome.
Like my main jobs.
And like, how long have you been doing this?
I've been doing it for almost 25 years.
Wow. What was your start? How did you kind of get into all this?
I wanted to go on the road from the time I was 15. And I know this because I went to a New Kids on the Block concert, and that's where all the dreams began. And I remember going, as a super fan, going and seeing during the show these people, men at the time, of course, only running guitars to the band members, or the one guy testing the microphone saying, "This microphone belongs to Donnie Wahlberg," and saying like, what? Obviously these people have jobs. Like, how do I do that? Of course, it was all about New Kids on the Block then. But that's what kind of got that idea in my head. And to get there, of course, I was like, how do I figure out a way to get into this line of work? The only thing I knew at the time was radio, right? That was music. That was an easy way to like connect with that. I can do that. So I found a school in Boston called Emerson College, and they had a communication and performing arts division. And really not knowing anything more about music or radio, I got a degree in public relations because I'm like, that's generic enough. I don't know exactly what I can do with that, but that's easy enough. And then when I was graduating, I was still looking for a way on the road. I worked some in radio in the promotion side of things. And somebody suggested doing corporate sponsorship on the road, and not knowing again what that was exactly, but it was using my PR degree and also this background in radio promotion. I got my first tour being a corporate sponsor rep for Biore pore strips, if you remember the strips that you put on.
Oh yeah.
So clean pores for years. And
That's
it was
awesome.
on Little Fair. So that was my first time like on the road and handing out pore strips to concert goers.
So when did you learn, like when you got on the road, you obviously were probably starting out, I don't know if you grasped all the concepts of all the jobs, but when did you decide you wanted to, learn how to manage, or when did you want to like learn you wanted to be the leader of the tour?
I think it was, Little Fair was such a great first tour ever. It was women fronted bands or female artists. And if you looked around the crew, it was probably almost 50-50. It wasn't quite that. It was maybe 60% men, 40% women. So I saw female riggers, lighting, sound, like it was everyone, females doing every job. But I remember, I love organization. I love like keeping people in line and sort of being the person holding the flag, being like, this way, we're going to walk this way. That's, I would do that if I worked at Disney World. So that's kind of when I went, okay, I want to be that person. So that's how I'm not knowing, again, that was the job specifically. But then once I learned, okay, that road manager, that tour manager, that's who's the boss. Okay, I want to do that.
So now that you've been doing this job for a long time, what would you say is like one of your favorite parts, or what would you say is something that brings you a lot of joy in your job every day?
I love travel, and I love the community that you have within a tour. You're on the road with other people that are sometimes, 3 months at a time, 6 months at a time, and you really become a family. And I think that's why this pandemic has been so hard. It's like, I can't travel and I'm not around people. So this is like, what do I do with that? But there's also that element of organization. And I actually am holding my heart spreadsheets mostly. So I do. I love spreadsheets and I love organization. So I miss the keeping people on track, but also like connecting with people and traveling.
There's actually a TikTok devoted to just Google Sheets tricks in Excel. I think it's,
I gotta write
I don't
this
know,
down.
Google Sheets tricks. It's pretty amazing. A friend showed it to me,
Man,
and I get lost on those.
that's great.
So you love the organization, you love the people. Tell me what it was like this, almost a year ago to the day of when, the industry kind of shut down. What were you feeling? Where were you at? Did you have something that you were about to go on the road for? Were you already on the road?
Yeah, I was on the road. I was the tour manager for the A party of Alanis Morissette. It was the 25th anniversary of the Jagged Little Pill album. So it was like, this is my college anthem album. This was like everything that I was like, this is incredible. We did 3 weeks in Europe. And when we came back, I remember hearing sort of about the thing. There was a thing happening, but it was like in Italy or in London. And then when we came back, it was just like, that's not good. I didn't even think it was going to affect us. Us are we're so great. The US is just, we're not going to be affected by that. And lo and behold, there it is, we got shut down. So I think the first part of it was a shock, but also there was a little bit of like, oh good, I can take a break, I can take a nap. This is going to be awesome. Get some walks in, do some yoga, like this is going to be fine.
Yeah.
And here we are a year later and still trying to channel that energy.
Yeah, totally. It was, I remember thinking, this is going to be, it's going to blow over pretty quick. And here we are a year later. You're right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about a little bit, kind of what you've been doing during the pandemic. I noticed you kind of been up to a ton of stuff. What are some things and what are some ways that you've pivoted? I know that you have a couple passions that you work, with organizations. You have a new business you started. Kind of tell us a little bit about that, because as a tour manager and as a touring professional, a lot of times we feel like we get pigeonholed to the road. And I think this has been a time where people are trying to figure out what else can they do. And so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you here, because I think what you're doing is really awesome. In addition to being a tour manager. And so tell us a little bit about kind of what the journey was like with the organization you're part of, and also the new business.
Great, thank you. Thanks for the setup. So I work with an organization called Thistle Farms, which is in Nashville, based in Nashville. It is a recovery community for women who have been in prostitution, addiction, trafficking, abuse, and they come off of the streets or out of jail or just out of bad relationships, and they live for free for 2 years and get their lives just back together. They get people to love on them and get mental and physical health back together. And as they're in recovery from that and kind of getting their lives back together, they can work for the social enterprise, which makes and sells bath and body products. So it's hand lotions and soaps. And I have a candle that's not lit, but this is my candle right next to me. It's really big candles. Nice. I know, I'm like, I didn't light my candle. What's wrong? And it's great. And all the money goes back into the program and helps new women come off the streets. It's this really incredible organization. And so I've been a part of it since 2008. Honestly, it was a time in touring that I was like, I need more than just the road. And I looked for something. My mom actually suggested to volunteer somewhere, and mothers always know best. So I found this a long time ago, thanks to her. And it's just changed my life. It's just a community of women, but really it's a community for all of us that when we're feeling a little lost, when we kind of need support, it's a place that you can go to. And in Nashville, if you're in Nashville, they have a cafe that you can go to. And that's where we will meet someday, Riley.
Yes, absolutely. Well, tell us a little bit, what did you do with that organization, and how did you kind of use the skills that you had, your 25 years of tour management? How did you bring that into that organization?
When I first started volunteering there, it was literally just showing up once a week and just saying, how can I help? And then I was there, I think, enough and kind of like annoying enough that the volunteer coordinator at the time was like, oh my gosh, you just won't leave. Fine, here, do this. And she put me in touch with the director of PR. And funny enough, I had a degree in PR. So we started working together. And this was at the time of Facebook pages starting for organizations. And they didn't have a blog. I started a blog. I helped them get on Facebook. Eventually when Instagram came in, helped them with that. So really started that way. And then as the years progressed, I just helped in whatever way the need was. So when the cafe opened, I was like, hey, we're in Nashville, let's do live music. Oh, by the way, I know some people that do music. So put a committee together, all of us together, booked bands, promoted it, sold tickets to bring people in to see music and this beautiful cafe, but also to spread the word about Thistle Farms. And then currently I'm actually working with a friend of mine, Jordan Hamlin, who's a producer in town, and we're working together on building a podcast for Thistle. So it's just, awesome. It's going to be cool. It's going to be just being a part of it and learning more about the women and the stories and how I can help just by doing things like this and talking about it. I feel like is my way to like give back, but really I get more out of it than they do because it feeds my soul.
Yeah, for sure. So, we talked about having a growth mindset just a minute ago and how important that is, and how being optimistic is going to just, help us see, the next year better. You posted something on social media recently, and you talked about trusting the process. You talked about kind of seeing your past life recently as like a movie montage, and I'm sure with some epic background music, but you talked about the only advice you would give yourself in the past is trusting the process. And I thought that was really powerful. And I want to just kind of hear you talk about that a little more.
You bet. It's true. It's like, think about any movie you see, and like you're in it with the character, and you're like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? We don't know. You get to the end, and then they did the flashback, the montage. You're like, of course, like all these things had to happen to get to this next level or this next step. And we don't know what that is yet. And this is a great example. This whole year is like, I don't know what's going to happen after this. I don't know what the next thing, I don't know what it looks like when we'll go back, but I have to trust that everything that's happening right now is for a reason. And I'm not even saying like, find the silver lining. Like this isn't a Pollyanna moment. It's more of like, we have no other choice. And sometimes what I've really tried to do in this time, and by the way, really poorly. So I'm not saying this like I've got it figured out, but when things start, like when the cycle starts of like, I don't know when we're going to go back. I don't know if I'm going to get back to the same gig. I don't know if I'm going to, all the, like you talked about, people cutting crew to have smaller number of people with knowing more jobs. Like if that, I mean, that's in my head now. So I'm like, oh God, what else, what can I learn? But I have to think when those feelings come up, rather than like letting it take me down the road, I just have to notice it and then just go back to that thing. I'm like, okay, just trust it. And it'll, just like breathe through it, be in the now, but really, this is just a moment. For the good news is nothing lasts forever. The bad news is nothing lasts forever. Right. So just
Right.
this is where we are. It's going to come and go, but just trust that you are exactly where you need to be, whatever that means.
Yeah, for sure. I heard someone put it like this recently. No matter what you're doing, if it's new, it's going to feel like you're in a fog. We don't have to know every step that we're going to take in the fog. All we have to know how to do is take our next step. We got to move our foot and move it to the one that we see right there. We don't have to know what it looks like 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years in advance. We just have to take the next step.
So true.
And so that, I think that's really great, trusting the process, and not being too worried about, what happens next. And, I know that I'm not maybe as anxious as some others, but it is just, that has been, just super helpful for me to think if I'm in a fog, all I got to do is move my foot forward.
So
The road is super draining. And as we're kind of moving forward, what are some ways that, touring professionals, you've been doing this 25 years, what are some secrets that we can stay healthy moving forward, whether it's physically, whether it's mentally or emotionally?
I love, and I wrote this down, that we collectively have to adapt, because I think you're right. Like there's not a go-to self-care or anything like that on the road, especially as someone who's a tour manager, who's like the one in charge that everyone relies on. I mean, I joke about, if I can get a couple hours of sleep a night, awesome. Like I did good. What is 2 hours of sleep? And I'm not even exaggerating. That's not like I'm toughing it out, but there's sometimes where I'm like, I'm just to the point of exhaustion. If I can get all the cat nap in, then I'm like better the next day. I'm not. Like we have to start taking better care of ourselves. And one thing is, if you can have somebody on the road with you that you can sort of like tap and be like, all right, I'm out. I need to take 5 minutes or 20 minutes. You be the person that people come to, unless somebody's, on fire or someone's like in real need. We can take breaks, if that means getting up 10 minutes before you have to and just doing a little mindfulness, just doing a little yoga, getting out. If you're traveling, get out in the city that you've never been in before, just walk around. You know what I mean? Like just do something to get kind of out of your head.
How have you found that person in the past? Like, is that typically an assistant, or is that just someone else that's a crew person on the road? Is that a manager? Who's been that person for you?
In the past, it's been either an assistant, if not my assistant, someone who is assistant to the artist. On the Atlanta tour, there's the main tour manager and myself. So he and I will kind of work together. And if I need something, I can go to him and vice versa. So it's always, but even if that person doesn't exist on tour, it could be even as simple as letting your artist know, hey, I'm off. I got to do something for 15 minutes. You don't have to say why. You can just say like, I'll be right back, or I'm getting something for you, whatever the thing is. Maybe it's a little lie. I don't know, but just something to know. And, honestly, maybe it's okay to start saying to the artist, I need 15 minutes to myself. Maybe that's part of what we have to do now moving forward.
Yeah, I heard it said recently, I've heard this many times, but you can't pour from an empty cup. And you have to take care of yourself before you take care of other people. And
what is it? Put your mask on in the airplane before you put the kids on. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. If your plane's going down, which sometimes that's the way it feels like on the road, pretty much every day. Yes. You have to take care of yourself before you take care of others. And so, how have you kind of stayed focused and I'm trying to get more into like bringing that person into your life. Are you pretty vulnerable with that person, even though you're leading that person on the road? Like, or are you kind of just, are you just saying, hey, just cover my station for me? Do you have someone that you get vulnerable on the road with, or do you confide in like a partner or a, a best friend at home?
I think if you're lucky to have both, then do all those things. I have both, luckily, so I can do that. I think also when you're up front, if you say up front, I'm about to be vulnerable right now. I'm about to lose my mind. They're going to get more like there's no hiding it. They're going to be like, okay, we're ready for it now. And also on the road too. And this is part of like being a female on the road. It's kind of hard because, I mean, when I'm really mad, I will cry. That's how mad I am. And it's like, do guys just cry when you're mad? I don't know. Probably not. Maybe.
Not most of the time, not sometimes,
Right.
depends on how
So,
mad
but
you get.
exactly right. Tears come down, and I'm like, I'm not crying. But also, it's like if you sort of say up front, this is where I'm at, and this is what I'm feeling, it takes away any sort of power for someone to judge you for
Mhm.
saying, oh, you're weak, or you can't handle it, or whatever it is. And by the way, even if they think that, great, good for them. Doesn't matter. You're still the boss. You're still the one doing it. But it's good to have a person on the road and a person at home if you have that, luckily, even if it's not even like your best friend. It's like, call your mom. Your
Yeah,
mom
for
can
sure.
listen to you.
I think community is going to be something we're going to be striving for more on the road than we ever have. How many times have you been on a tour where most of the people on your tour, you you don't even really know them until really the last week of the tour, and
Oh
then
my gosh, yeah.
you start kind of opening up and talking to them. But I think tour camaraderie is going to become even more of a thing as we move forward. Um,
Definitely.
Carolyn, thank you so much for being here. You're a great tour manager. You're a great human. Everybody that I talk to that knows you loves you,
Oh,
and
thanks.
they love working with you. Um, First of all, also happy International Women's Day.
Thank you.
Thanks for being an amazing woman in our
Oh,
industry, even
thanks.
though sometimes it has not been easy for women. Um, Real quick, I would love to have this is like a two-part question. I'd love to have you just kind of give some advice to tour managers. And then the second part of the question is, can you leave some advice for women getting into the industry or who are in the industry, or maybe some women who are trying to figure out if this is actually right for them to go back into?
Right. I think for tour managers, and we talked about it already, but it's good. It's like have a buddy or have someone that you can really go to when you need a break. I just think it's lonely on the road too. I mean, your job is to take care of everyone, and then when you need self care and you need to be just even a small amount of time. It doesn't have to be a full day off because those don't really happen. But if you can at least have somebody that you can like talk to and even to talk to, even if it just takes that 15 minutes to just download with somebody and then you're better, have that person, find who that person is. And if it doesn't exist on a new tour, especially if you don't know who that person is yet, then have somebody who you've toured with in the past that knows what you're talking about when you're just like, this happened and this person was late for a bus call. They know without even questioning what that means.
Right.
And as far as females goes, a lot of I've more recently than not, I've found artists specifically asking for female tour managers. And I think there's
Yeah.
something to say about what we bring. Like I'm not a parent, but I feel like I have a maternal instinct that I can, help whatever way I bring that is different than a male. My organization, different things that I don't ever think about that in a bad way anymore. I used to have to sort of think I have to prove myself as being better than guys and male tour managers, but it's not that anymore. It's just like it's something different. And if you're good at your job, it shouldn't matter, but sometimes it actually helps you to be a female, and especially for female artists and some male artists that ask specifically for female tour managers.
Yeah,
And for
absolutely.
newbies, here's my one thing I want to say. Whatever job you get, and it could be, you're the PA or you're the runner or you're the whatever the low level you think is low level, even though it's not, whatever job that is, take it and do it the best you can because everyone around you is watching you. And I promise you, I went from, sponsorship rep, and 20 years later, I get recommended as a tour manager for Janet Jackson. Like, what are the chances? Because it was somebody who saw me and remembered my work ethic. So never forget, like, whatever you're doing, do it to the best of your ability. And people are watching you.
Yeah, that is awesome. I think, with Tour Collective, I've had a lot of people reach out and for jobs, but a lot of it was finding females. And honestly, it was a little bit hard. And I'm excited to be able to know more women going into touring in the future and seeing more women rise up and seeing more people like you who are being super encouraging. Most every tour that I've been on with females over males, just males, has been a way better tour. So I'm excited about touring getting better. But
Excellent.
Carolyn, thanks so much again. I really
Thank
appreciate you
you.
jumping on here.
It's
This has been
awesome.
really great.
You're inspiring. Keep it up. I've taken notes. I've got a lot of things to do now. So thank you.
Thank you. And we got to meet for coffee soon.
Yes, let's do it.
All right, y'all. I'm going to go over real quick what we just talked about so you don't forget. We talked about the 4 characteristics of a value-driven touring professional. See yourself as an economic product on the open market. Know how to engage in open and honest conflict. Be relentlessly optimistic. Have a growth mindset. Do all this. You guys are going to be setting yourself up for a better future in this industry, or really in any other job you have. Every one of you deserve to come out of this stronger than you were before, but we have to change the way we think, and we have to be committed to becoming that value-driven touring professional. If you want some help in kind of taking your career to the next step, we created a course called How to Be a Tour Manager. We're going to take you through the life of a tour manager chronologically and lead you through step-by-step processes on exactly how to manage tours. From the moment you get approached about doing the job to the moment you lay your head on the pillow after the first show is over, from advancing the show to settling the show, after you take the course, you're going to know everything you need to know to start managing tours. We've taken a few groups of people through this course, and the things they've been able to do are pretty amazing. I just heard a story a couple days ago about a guy who was a backline tech. He took our course and he told the manager of the artist that he was taking the course, and the manager, because he saw his initiative, he gave him a shot, and this guy nailed it. And so now he's tour managing, went from a backline tech to now tour managing. So cool. We love seeing that. If you want to take advantage of an opportunity like this, we'd love to meet you. We'd love to hear from you. Schedule a call with us at tourcollective.co/call. We don't want to sell you something, or we don't want you to take this if it's not going to actually help you out. And to be honest, it's not for everybody. But we'd love to meet you and help you figure out how to take that next step in your career. Again, that's tourcollective.co/call. Hey, thanks so much for joining in. You're going to be getting a replay in your email tomorrow, as well as notes from today. Well, I'm going to try to do a swipe file, I think it's what it's called, with all the slides, so you can kind of get all that information. And remember, this is a 4-week series. This is the first week out of 4 weeks. Next week, we're going to be talking about 3 things to do when you're starting a new job. It is absolutely crucial that we start off on the right foot. Everybody is going to be starting something new soon. So come in, join in, bring a friend. But we will see you next week at 2 p.m. Thanks for joining us.